Hi, my name is Alex Whitney. This is Conspiracy 101, and today we're going to be looking into the Kentucky meat shower. Yep, I know exactly what you're thinking. No, this is not some depraved sex act. This is an actual thing that happened, that is well documented, and skirts the line between what is a conspiracy and what is not a conspiracy. This probably is more of a mystery than a conspiracy, so let's get straight into it. As always, starting with Wikipedia, the fountain of all knowledge. The Kentucky meat shower. The Kentucky meat shower was an incident occurring for a period of several minutes between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. on March 3rd, 1876, where what appeared to be chunks of red meat measuring approximately 2 by 2 inches, 5 by 5 centimetres, with at least one being 4 by 4 inches, 10 by 10 centimetres, fell from the sky in a 100 by 50 yard, 91 by 46 metre area near Olympia Springs in Bath County, Kentucky. There exist several explanations as to how this occurred and what this meat was, the most popular being the vulture theory, in which a group of vultures regurgitated their meals after being startled into taking flight. The exact type of meat was never identified, although various reports suggest it was beef, lamb, deer, bear, horse, or even human. Incident. At the time, the farmer's wife, Mrs. Crouch, was making soap on her porch when she reported seeing the meat pieces fall from the sky. She said she was 40 steps from her house when the meat started to slap the ground. The meat looked grisly, according to Mrs. Crouch. She and her husband believed the event signified a sign from God. A similar event was later reported in Europe. The phenomenon was reported by Scientific America, the New York Times, and several other publications at the time. A lot of what we're going to look at today is these old news sources, where most of the information is garnered from for the new news sources, which we will also read. And we've also got one thing that we haven't really done properly before, is actually looked at a genuine book, which is something we don't always do. So, it's fun. Most of the pieces were approximately 2 by 2 inches, at least one was 4 by 4. The meat appeared to be beef, but according to the first report in Scientific American, 2 men who tasted it excuse me. That's made me feel really ill. That's gross. 2 men who tasted it judged it to be lamb or deer. Writing in Sanitarian, Leopold Brandes identified the substance as nostoc, a type of cyanobacteria. Okay, we need to look that up. Let's have a look, see what nostoc is. That's weird. Oh! I have never heard of this. It's also known as star jelly, or troll's butter, spit of moon, fallen star, witch's butter, not to be confused with the fungi commonly known as witch's butter, and witch's jelly is the most common genus of cyanobacteria, found in various environments that may form colonies composed of filaments of moniliform cells in a gelatinous sheath of polysaccharides. Is there any more pictures? Oh, that is grim looking. Okay. Oh. Oh, they look like grapes. Oh. Now I feel even more ill. Brandes gave the meat sample to Newark Scientific Association for further analysis, leading to a letter from Dr. Alan McLean Hamilton appearing in the medical record and stating the meat had been identified as lung tissue from either a horse or a human infant. The structure of the organ in these 2 cases being almost identical. The composition of the sample was backed up by further analysis, with 2 samples of meat being identified as lung tissue, 3 as muscle, and 2 as cartilage. Brande's Nostoc theory relied on the fact that nostoc expands into a clear jelly-like mass when rain falls on it, often giving the sense that it was falling with the rain. Charles Fort noted in his book, The Book of the Damned, which we will read a little bit, or we'll try and read it, I don't know, it's like a book from ages ago, but it's genuinely a good book though. It's one of the early, let's click on it. First published non-fiction work by American author Charles Fort, The Book of the Damned, from 1919, concerning various types of anomalous phenomena, including UFOs, strange falls, both organic and inorganic materials from the sky, odd weather patterns, possible existence of creatures generally believed to be mythological. Again, this is like a not the Bible necessarily of this field, of the crypto field, but it's definitely it's sourced a lot. It's sourced a lot. But he said there hadn't been any rain. Locals favoured the explanation that meat was vomited by buzzards, who, as is their custom, it's just their custom. You can't. It's a cultural custom. It's what they do. You can't be mad at them. All right. Seeing one of their companions disgorge himself, immediately followed suit. Dr. Louis D. Castebine presented his theory in the contemporaneous Louisville Medical News as the best explanation of the variety of meat. Fort explained the flattened, dry appearance of meat chunks as the result of pressure, and noted that 9 days later, on March 12, 1876, red corpuscles with a vegetable appearance fell over London. I don't know, what is a corpuscle? Just stuff, basically. That's a nice way of saying stuff. Right, there are lots of different articles on this. This is a very odd event, and that's why we're covering it in Conspiracy 101. I'm really unsure of how to go about this, because there are lots of different sources that basically say the same thing. So I think we're going to go old to new. So let's go to, if I just pause that, some of the contemporaneous, as they love to put it, news articles. So this is from the New York Herald, and hopefully we'll be able to zoom in. The Carnal Rain. Careful investigation of the Kentucky marvel by correspondent. The locality visited. Statements from eyewitnesses of the phenomenon. Appearance and taste of the supernatural flesh. Wrong one. No. It was better like that, Alex. Why do you fiddle? Why do I have to be it? Native theorists. How good is it? It's legible. Olympian Springs, Bath County, Kentucky, March 16th, 1876. According to instructions transmitted by telegraph to Louisville, Kentucky, your correspondent hastily arranged his viaticum and started with all the expedition possible for the Olympian Springs, Bath County, Kentucky, in the vicinity of which place the wonderful carnal shower is said to have fallen recently. On the day of my departure from Louisville, I had the good fortune to meet Captain J.M. Bent, of Mount Sterling. Can I zoom in more? I'm really struggling to read this. Who is the gentleman that brought to Louisville the substance reputed to have fallen from the clouds to the earth, and placed in its hands Professor Lawrence J. Smith for analysis, and also gave the information to the agent of the Associated Press of that city, upon which the original statement of the occurrence were made. From Mount Sterling to the Springs. Right, I don't think I'm going to read this because this is giving me a headache already. Oh, let's do some readings. Good morning, sir. Won't you light? No, I'm a little bit of a hurry. Have you seen any of the flesh that was rained down on Mr. Crouch's farm? Yes, sir, I have. What do you think about it? Well, sir, it is a mystery to me. Don't you think that Mr. Crouch is deceiving the people about this matter? Oh, no, sir. It's Mrs., sorry. She is too good a woman to be guilty of anything of that kind. Then you believe all that she says about the wonderful occurrence? I do, sir. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss thing. I do, sir. I say, sir. Can you not see, sir, the things falling from the sky, sir? Okay, that's too much. It's going to melt my brain. Right, let's move on to the next old one. I think, yeah, so this is from the New York Times. Flesh descending in a shower. An astounding phenomenon. They love that word, don't they? In Kentucky, fresh meat like mutton or venison falling from a clear sky. Special dispatch to the New York Times. Louisville, March 9. The Bath County, Kentucky. News of this date says, on last Friday, a shower of meat fell near the houses of Alan Crouch, who lives some 2 or 3 miles from the Olympian Springs in the southern portion of the county, covering a strip of ground about 100 yards in length and 50 wide. Mrs. Crouch was out in the yard at the time, engaged in making soap, when meat which looked like beef began to fall around her. The sky was perfectly clear at the time, and I'm getting a bit of a drawl. My accents are awful. This is the first Conspiracy 101 you've watched. I apologize. The sky was perfectly clear at the time, and she said it fell like large snowflakes. Pieces, as a general thing, not being much larger. One piece fell near her, which was 3 or 4 inches square. Mr. Harrison Gill, whose veracity is unquestionable, and from whom we obtained the above facts, hearing of the occurrence, visited the locality the next day, and says he saw particles of meat sticking to the fences and scattered over the ground. The meat, when it first fell, appeared to be perfectly fresh. The correspondent of the Louisville Commercial, writing from Mount Sterling, corroborates the above, and says the pieces of flesh were various sizes and shapes, some of them being 2 inches square. 2 gentlemen who tasted the meat expressed the opinion that it was either mutton or venison. Why did they eat it? Okay, so I've got a really nice old blogspot website from archive.org. It's been archived. But it's not loading for some reason. Oh, it's loading now. Okay, so let's go to... We talked about it. Let's see it. Book of the Damned. This damned book of mine. Chapter 27. Vast and black, the thing was poised like a crow over the moon, round and smooth. I'm just going to do my own voice, because there's too many American voices. It's just awful. Round and smooth, cannonballs, things that have fallen from the sky to this earth. That's my normal reading voice. Our slippery brains. Things like cannonballs have fallen in storms upon this earth, like cannonballs that are things in storms that have fallen to this earth. Showers of blood, showers of blood, showers of blood, whatever it may have been. Something like red brick dust, or red substance and dried oh, no, it's not a song. Okay. Okay, so that's Italy, something weird, super dragon named, this is a really odd book, the way it's like worded and thing. Germany, no. Crystal Palace, London, nope. Nature, red snow of polar and mountainous regions. We have no opposition because that snow has never been seen to fall from the sky. Ooh. You do get sometimes, like red lakes, don't you, where it's like the algae and stuff like builds up and colours it like pink lakes and things like that. So maybe it's more to do with that. They look like vegetable cells. Okay, here we go. About 9 days before had fallen the red substance, flesh, whatever it had been, of Bath County, Kentucky. I think that a super-egotist, vast, but not so vast as to be supposed, had refused to move to one side for a comet. What? Okay, so moving on to the newer articles. Obviously, most of these aren't actually in press. They are in beautiful, old worldy, internet old worldy. This is Wayback Machine. I don't think it's still around, but it's one of those pages that just continuously loads, which is never a good sign. So I'm just going to stop that. And hopefully it's all loaded. So this is what the meat looked like. Now, obviously, it's... I don't think it looked like that when they ate it, but you can see why. It makes you feel a bit... It clings in your throat, doesn't it? It clings in your throat. You're thinking, someone ate that, and they probably drank the juice. From frogs to fish, a variety of bizarre things have fallen from the sky throughout history. But on March 3rd, 1876, residents of Bath County in Kentucky were amazed to see flakes of meat falling from the sky. See, it's strange, isn't it, how this story goes from one person, Mrs. Crouch, to lots of people. See, when I first heard about this story, I thought it was at like a fair or a fete or something like that, like a county fair, and that's why it was known, because lots of people saw it. But I don't know. The meat storm lasted... The meat storm. Beautiful. Lasted for several minutes, covering and small 100 by 50 yard area of the Allen Crouch Farm, approximately 2 miles south of Olympia Springs. There was enough meat to fill a large wagon, or at least that's how the story goes. Some of the locals actually took it upon themselves to taste the fleshy substance. Even though it appeared similar to beef, those who tasted it claimed its flavour resembled that of lamb, mutton, or venison. I wonder how they cooked it. I wonder if they cooked it. Boiled it. Ugh. I'm okay, I just needed a moment. Right. Where were we? Oh yeah, it was sent to Newark, sampled it. Meat had been identified as lung tissue, either from a horse or a human infant, which are apparently the same. Nearly 140 years after the Kentucky meat storm, the mystery officially remains unsolved. Although there have been some interesting theories, maybe some are conspiratorial. Some claim that the meat was vomited by buzzards during flight. Others insist it was a substance was nostoc, a cyanobacteria that forms a slimy, jelly-like colonies. This theory was soon disproven by scientific analysis. According to many newspaper accounts, the meat did not fall in pieces of a uniform size. The Oakland Tribune reported the meat was served in the shape of a hash, and its particles ranged in size from a delicate shred as light as a snowflake to a solid lump 3 inches square. This would seem to suggest a violent episode, such as an explosion. Could it possibly be some poor sheep had strayed too close to a distant volcano at the same time of an eruption, having particles of its carcass carried for hundreds of miles in a plume of debris? Or could it have even more unlikely scenario with a natural explanation, such as a meteor striking a bird as it fell to Earth? One must also consider the possibility of a prank or hoax. Perhaps a Kentucky farmer with too much time on his hands decided to insert a stick of dynamite into a goat just to see what would happen. If you're the betting type, we'd advise you to put your money on the possibility of hoax or practical joke. See, it's weird. It doesn't feel like that. Some of these kind of old stories do feel a bit sort of suspicious. This doesn't feel like that from the news articles and the people involved, at least. As with many stories born in places with rugged hills of rural eastern Kentucky, numerous retellings tend to inflate even the most insignificant minnow into a giant whale. Newspaper reporters in the perpetual state of salivation over the next big headline do their part in order to hype the mystery until, finally, the story becomes ingrained in the public consciousness and becomes a fixture of myth and local folklore. Those who take the time to research the famous Kentucky meat shower will see the details surrounding the event were greatly exaggerated. For instance, the meat shower was not seen by hundreds of people, or even dozens. In fact, there was only 2 witnesses who claimed to have actually seen the meat flakes fall from the sky, Mrs. Crouch and her grandson. On the 30th of March 1876, a Oskaloosa Independent printed an interview with Mrs. Houston, which she had given to a reporter from the New York Herald, who had come to interview neighbours and witnesses about the mysterious meat storm. Mrs. Houston, who had nothing to lose or gain, insisted that the whole story was a fabrication. Mrs. Crouch, upon whose farm the meat storm occurred, was interviewed by the same New York Herald reporter. She stated that the storm, by measure, would not go into a half bushel. That's a far cry from a horse wagon full of meat, as other sources claim. In other words, this miraculous meat shower was less like manna from heaven and more like a crouton or a breadcrumb. A half bushel is 15.14 litres, or 512 ounces, about 32 pounds. 32 pounds of meat isn't very much. It's roughly the equivalent of 2 large groundhogs. I love this. That's how everything should be quantified. Animal size. 2 wild turkeys, 1 small lamb, or a pygmy goat. 2 large groundhogs, 2 wild turkeys, 1 small lamb, or a pygmy goat. In other words, there wasn't even a fully grown goat's worth of meat in the ground. Mrs. Crouch, the only adult witness to the event, said that she saw the meat coming down at a straight or sloping angle, where some of it was promptly eaten by the family dog, who became seriously ill afterwards. She also saw a blood-like substance on the fence rails. One person who examined the meat was local hunter named B.F. Ellington. Ellington, whose diet consisted mostly of wild game that he caught himself, declared with the utmost confidence that it was bear meat. He told reporters, "I've seen some of the meat that fell on old man Crouch's farm, and if it's meat at all, it's bear meat. This meat that fell from the heavens on Alan Crouch's farm has got that uncommon greasy feel that I'm so well acquainted with. I know bear grease when I see it, and that's the kind of fluid what come outen that meat at old Alan's and got all over my hands when I examine it. I smell it too, and I know that smell as well as I know the smell of liquor. Gentlemen, it's bear meat certain, or else my name's not Benjamin Franklin Ellington." The old hunter probably hit the nail right on the head. The Crouch farm was located in a region of Bath County, which is virtually surrounded on all sides by Daniel Boone National Forest, which is a haven for all kinds of wildlife, including bears and buzzards. In all likelihood, the meat that rained down from the sky was probably bear meat disgorged by a vulture of the Curagips auratus, or Caphates aura varieties, or flying over the farm. Vultures, when threatened, regurgitate semi-digested meat. This meat missile, laden with bacteria, is the vulture's way of waging biological warfare against its enemies. Vultures also vomit undigested meat when they need to make a quick escape from predators. This bacteria-tainted meat explains why Mrs. Crouch's dog became ill after eating it, and the vulture vomit theory also explains the blood-like ooze which landed atop Mrs. Crouch's fence. So, there you have it, a logical explanation for the famous Kentucky meat storm of 1876. Once you remove the outlandish claims made by the sensationalistic press and take out the embellishments added by generations of backwards Kentucky locals, that's not me, that's him, or them, or whoever. Bit harsh. Then can examine the facts of the case. It's easy to see that this unsolved mystery isn't much of a mystery at all. Well, boo you, Mr. Sunday, May 3rd, if that's your real name. Right, let's get rid of the stuff we've already done. Done that. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got some, again, more modernish articles. Yeah, we've got loads. So let's just go through them, and then we're going to end on a book which I used for the cover of this episode. So let's start with this one. This is from Atlas Obscura, which is an interesting website. Oh no, go back to that one. The historical head scratcher inspired the world's worst jelly bean flavour. What? There's Kentucky meat shower jelly beans. It tastes like bear. So this is from 2020. This is the art I used, and the art is from a book which we will look at right at the end. Every October, around 200,000 people gather in Kentucky for Court Days, the largest outdoor event in the state. Ever since 1794, locals have bought, traded, or sold various goods at the festival. Held in the city of Mount Sterling, but in one of the strangest offerings in Court Days history, Kurt Gold, a professor of art at Transylvania University, handed out meat-flavoured jelly beans in 2007 to anyone who would eat them. Some people said the flavour of dark red jelly bean reminded them of raw bacon. Another pair agreed with each other that they tasted like strawberry pork chop. Gold, who's commissioned the jelly beans with a specific flavour profile, describes them as tasting like a heavily sugared bacon with a metallic aftertaste. The jelly beans were flavoured like the 1876 meat shower, a mysterious event where chunks of flesh rained down over nearby Olympia Springs. One early March day, Goad had hoped that meat connoisseurs at the Court Days might help them determine the true identity of the mysterious substance. How did he get the meat flavour? Goad, likely the foremost expert on meat rain, first... I want to be the foremost expert in meat rain. First learned about the incident in a book about strange weather phenomena more than 20 years ago. He had just moved... I used to have a book. That's brought back a memory. I used to have a book called Strange But True, and it had stuff like this in it. Like there was a guy who died after being impaled by raw spaghetti. There was loads of weird stuff like that. It wasn't all about death, but it had strange things like this. Yeah, that was what I got it from a book fair. You can go to book fairs. That's the kind of crap you picked up at book fairs. That and Where's Wally books. Or Where's Waldo, sorry. Where's Waldo? Or Où est Charlie? For our francophones. Right, where am I? More than 20 years. He had moved to Kentucky from upstate New York. Ooh, upstate New York! And was keen on asking his students more details about the unusual event. Wait, so his students? Is he genuinely a doctor of meat rain? That would be interesting. To his surprise, none of them knew what he was talking about. He looks like a doctor of meat rain. And I don't mean that as an insult. Goad, an artist often drawn to the strange and obscure, was fascinated by the meat shower, with a tremendous appetite for what... Don't word it like that. Don't. I believe people need to wonder in their lives. I know I do. Eager to learn more, he trawled Google books, old newspaper clippings, and research papers for mentions of the incident. One article dated March 9, 1876, and reprinted the next day in the New York Times, described Mrs. Crouch, who was in their yard, with, Oh, hello, this is different. Oh, hello! One piece made 3 or 4 inches square. 2 men tasted the raw meat and thought it might be mutton or venison, and the Crouch family cat gorged on the fortuitous feast. Is it a dog? Is it a cat? Did the cat get ill? Theories regarding the origin of the meat shower abounded. One early idea of it was nostoc. However, lab tests think it was bits of lung, muscle, cartilage. Another disconcerting and violent theory Goad proposed that 2 brothers had gotten into a knife fight, and a twister picked up the gory carnage and deposited it over residents of Olympia Springs. The taste, frankly, my dear, is vile. Goad's favourite theory, however, is one proposed by humorist William Livingston Alden. The obvious conclusion is that the Kentucky shower meat was really a meteoric shower. Meteoric stones constantly revolve around the sun, and it would stand to reason that there revolves around the sun a belt of venison, mutton, and other meats divided into small fragments, which are precipitated about the earth. Alden continues to explain that previously scientists had theorized that meteors were the result of exploded planets, so the meat shower must be the inhabitants who formerly occupied the wrecked planet. Essentially, the meat was exploded alien livestock. Maybe that's why it's such a mix of different things. The article even goes as far to suggest that scientists needed finer technology so that they would be able to predict meat rain like the weather. The writer indulges in a full cloudy with a chance of meatballs fantasy, writing that light showers of beefsteak may be looked for in the New England and Middle States during the morning, followed by heavy rain of mutton in the afternoon. But a definitive explanation of the meat shower never reached residents of Olympia Springs. In 1876, the idea of solving every riddle just didn't exist yet, so people were largely okay with a relatively plausible solution, and they would just move on. Yeah, meat shower, so 1876. Someone needs to send this to Ashens, don't they? Or the guy who eats old army surplus. But Goad didn't. Fascinated with the meat shower to begin with, a serendipitous, there we go, find in 2004 stoked this ardor even further. He was clearing out storage closets in Transylvania, great name, Transylvania University when he stumbled upon an old glass jar sealed with a cork stop. It contained a chunk of white, fatty-looking meat suspended in a pale yellow liquid. The label was faded, but the words Olympia Springs could still be made out. Goad was thrilled. Determined to try and pinpoint what mystery animal rained down over Olympia Springs, Goad worked with a college in the biology department to have the sample genetically tested. Unfortunately, the sample was too old and contaminated to give any conclusive results. Then Goad got creative. Much of his artwork involves community engagement. So he had a taste lab based in Cincinnati analyze flavour compounds of the meat sample and reconstruct the taste in a jelly bean. Goad wanted to educate local Kentuckians about the curious climatic event, and if anything, jelly beans would be a great conversation starter. Do you want to try my meat beans? It's based on meat from the sky, my meat beans. I was fascinated by the idea, but people would just eat it and then declare what it tasted like. Goad drove to Cincinnati and picked up more than 1,000 of meat shower jelly beans packed in small metal tins. Goad waited till he got home to try them. Parked in his driveway, he popped one in his mouth. The taste, frankly, is so vile, Goad says with a chuckle. I remember thinking it was really strong. The first one I ate tasted like chemicals and sugar. Accounts from 1876 describe the meat shower as tasting like mutton, although Goad thinks the jelly beans lack the distinct muttony flavour. He thought the Kentucky court days would be a good place to talk to locals and gather opinions about what meat it could be. But there was no consensus. Alas, Goad found the most likely explanation for the meat shower and its contents in the articles published in Louisville Medical News, which we talked about, the vomiting vultures theory. Kentucky is home to turkey vultures, with all possibilities of vultures feasted on sheep, treated with strychnine, a poison used to target coyotes. Vultures may have vomited in response to feeding on poisoned meat. Ah, that's a different one. That's another one. Okay. So it's not that they're getting scared and vomiting, it's that they've been poisoned. Now Goad wants to take his fascination with the meat shower even further. He's in the early stages of conceptualizing a collaborative community art project. No arts! As for his jelly beans, he wants a few tins tucked away in his studio. No one has ever wanted to try them twice. That needs to be a thing. Like, imagine a jelly bean tray with all different flavours of things. Like this. Like weird, horrible things. That'd be amazing. Love it. Okay, that was way more interesting than I thought it was going to be. The next two we're gonna skim through and to see if there's any more details. So let's just have a go. So this is from the Georgetonian. It's a WordPress, so I don't know if it's Georgetonian is a Georgetown College students-run newspaper, currently in volume big. Okay, so Olympia Springs. Yep, a Phil horse wagon. We heard about that. Live by the creed of when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, or either when strange meat falls from the sky, give it a taste test. Well, cat. Two men did taste it. Yep, so it's the same. Raw meat fell from the sky and 2 people ate it. Yep. Yeah, the story reached New York, but that is weird. That would make news nowadays still. 2 men didn't put their names to it. Fair enough. Well, did they really eat it, or did they just look at it and go, yeah, that's mutton? Again, that's what they think it might be. That is grim. Yeah, they said it didn't rain. Somehow it might be human, but it's not. Vulture vomit. Jelly beans, and then it's for jelly beans. Normally, I try to draw some deeper meaning out of the wonders I present here, but this story might be beyond moralization. Sometimes weird stuff happens. People try to figure it out, and then they move on, leaving others to come along and be equally confounded. I guess all I can recommend is that the next time someone tells you that Kentucky is known for second-rate wonders like Mammoth Cave, the Derby, or Colonel Sanders, you correct them with pride and tell them all about the time some scientifically minded Kentuckians ate buzzard vomit to figure out what kind of meat had rained from the sky. Beautiful. Again, this is from the Korea Journal. Korea? North Korea. Kentucky meat shower. Yes, meat fell from the sky. Yes, it did. Here we go. Described as flakes. Fresh. People don't know. Tested it. Lungs from a child or a goat. Okay, vomiting. Yep. So this is talking about the book, or the podcast that turned into a book, which we're going to look through in a second. I prefer wonder to solutions, he said. I think there are things we don't understand. I prefer the unsolvable. Right, let's, not that one, that one. So this is something I haven't done before. Hang on. Oh, it's another one. God, there's so many articles about this. So this is from allthatisinteresting.com. And again, it's very similar. I think a lot of this information is taken from the book we're going to look at. And that stuff, that's worse than the idea of the guys eating it. Oh. Science declare meteor or meat shower, yeah, meteor. I love that. I like those old school theories before people sort of, I know most people realised, but before we understood bird migration. So birds, going from Northern Europe down to like Africa, say, when it gets cold, some people genuinely thought that the birds migrated to the moon and then came back. I love that kind of old stuff. Shower of Nostoc, yep. Aww. How could you stay mad at that, man? Look at them. Oh, it's so beautiful. Scientific theories is, yep. Yep. Overcharged, disgorged stomachs. Townspeople have decided that was most likely scenario and elected to believe it as the best explanation for Kentucky meat shower. Obviously, it has slipped their minds that members of the town had actually eaten pieces of this half-digested meat, unless people were just cool with that in 1870s. I think they were probably just cool with that in 1870s. Oh, that's a short one. Oh, that's nice. Look at him, he's beautiful. Let's leave it on that whilst I get this set up. So, I haven't done this before, and we haven't really shown an ebook on... We've shown PDF versions of it, and that's quite easy to capture within Google Chrome, which is what I use, incognito mode. But this is an actual book. So please forgive the not very good look of it, because it just doesn't work. I've tried to rearrange it. It took ages. Let's just deal with it. So this is called The United States of Absurdity, and has some really good stories about basically the US. It's from the comedy history podcast The Dollop. By a couple of people, and has some amazing artwork which I have used. that's just beautiful. Which I have used, and has lots of different stuff, including characters, medical, resurrection. So I'm going to come back to this book at some point because these kind of things. Kentucky Meat Shower. It is literally the last one. That's really interesting. So yeah, there's lots of different stories and little anecdotes, but I love. American folklore is really interesting because it doesn't have those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds or thousands of years like Europe does to kind of form things, but it's still influenced by them, which is very interesting when you're studying it. Okay, Kentucky Meat Shower. Does it have the picture? Yes. So this is a beautiful picture with the cat. Where that other article got the dog from, I do not know. There she is making soap, and I just love her face. Look at that face. Right. Kentucky Meat Shower, March 3rd, 1876. On March 3rd, 1876, in Kentucky, a Mrs. Crouch was outside making soap. Above her was nothing but blue sky. Then out of nowhere, there was something falling from the sky. Meat. Meat rained down all over Mrs. Crouch's property. The meat dropped to the ground in various sizes. Some pieces were small, some were big. It was raining meat. Hallelujah. It was raining meat. The happiest creature was the Crouch's cat, who walked around eating the sky meat like it had won the feline lottery. This event came to be known as the Kentucky Meat Shower. The shower isn't so different reading a proper book compared to an article on a blog spot. It's like poetry, it rhymes. The shower went on for a couple of minutes, and the zone covered by the falling meat was 100 yards long, 50 yards wide. Word got out about the meat shower, and reporters showed up with questions and theories as to what the fuck had just happened. What kind of meat was it? Some claimed it was beef, others didn't agree. One weird dude said it was bear. The group of impromptu meat surveyors decided the best thing to do was taste the meat and let their mouths make the final determination. After chewing about the fat they were chewing, they narrowed it down to either deer or lamb. But not bear, Larry. Idiot. The town butcher swore it was mutton, but the meat's odour was different. Not helpful, town butcher. Staff members from Transylvania University took some pieces back to their labs to study. And yes, to answer your question, they were obviously scholastic vampires. And we all know vampires have hearts that need to be burned and eaten. See this page. The learning never ends with this book. I don't know what that's a reference to. This is the last one, isn't it? So it could be referenced to all of them, all the different ones. Chemists and other scientists asked for and received samples of the meat. One scientist decided it was dried frog spawn, which had been moved by a breeze or strong wind. Another man thought it was a vegetable mass from the sky. Dr. I.D. Castenbein, a chemistry professor at the Louisville College of Pharmacy, heated some over an open flame and swore it smelt like mutton. He used some other samples and again thought it was mutton. So we must have had an exploding lamb on our hands. However, two other doctors had a different theory. It was meat, but not mutton. The theories were getting more and more normal. When doctors looked at the meat under a microscope, they figured it was either horse lungs or the lungs of a human infant. Dr. Edwards examined 3 different samples. He thought they were all cartilage, but didn't know what animal they were from. But he did know that they were from an animal. Jesus, does anyone have any information? Astronomers thought it was space meat. They suggested it was possible that fragments of meat could have been floating in space, which a meteor shower could have contained. A meteor shower, if you will. And you will. After some time, an actual normal theory emerged. The meat shower was vomit. Yes, that's the normal theory. A meaty vomit storm. It turns out the vultures are known to vomit if they are full of food and sense danger. Vomiting lightens them up so they can get away from whatever danger is threatening them. So if one vulture heaves, then the others follow suit, and air baths as well. And that is the most logical theory we have to this day. One day, while a lady was hanging up her laundry, a vulture freaked out and bathed. And then all his buddies were like, "Oh no, Ted blew bits, I better too." And there you have it. A full-on vulture sky puke party. A preserved piece of the sky meat sits today in Transylvania University. Hopefully it's in a tube or a jar. It is, we've seen it. Wonder what those vampires are up to? You can go see the meat, but do not go at night, and when you do, wear garlic, and bring holy water, and a cross, and a priest, and be ready to eat a heart. Fun fact. Vultures have very strong stomach acid, which allows them to eat meat that would make humans sick. It is almost comparable to battery acid. Vultures can withstand 100 times the amount of botulism that humans can. Some dude ate it. Right. Again, really, it's treading a line, isn't it, about what a conspiracy is. But still, I feel like these kind of tidbits are relevant to other conspiracies that are actually properly conspiracies and conspiratorial. Because a wider understanding of the weirdness that can happen will help us breathe together. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.